Welcome back to Getting Started with Unreal Technology. In the last video, Zach got our basic level carved out by using 3 different subtraction brushes. Basically, we have 2 rooms connected with a very simple hallway. From there, he applied all of the materials to the level so that we had some sort of textures on our walls, floors, and ceilings. With that, he's also put 2 lights into place so that there's some illumination within the level itself and everything's not black. Now, in this video, he's going to begin populating the level with static meshes. This is where we get our rich detail from in Unreal Tournament maps.
That's right. When you play UT3 maps, you're going to see that just about every visible surface is generally a static mesh.
That's right. And the nice thing about static meshes is the way they work with your video card. Basically, when you bring in one static mesh and then duplicate it 100 more times, the overhead is very little, making it where the system can stay nice and fast when rendering to your screen.
That's right. The key is instancing, using multiple copies of a single mesh. Now, what we're going to be doing in this particular level is keeping the static mesh load very light. We're just going to put a few here and a few there for some general decoration, but that's because this is an introductory level. Now, if you start to get the hang of what we're doing and you just really want to coat every visible surface with some sort of a mesh, by all means, have a good time with it. We're just going to keep things fairly simple in terms of this level.
Now, of course, the static meshes that we're going to be using will be available for you to use inside of packages that have already been created because these static meshes have been used within Unreal Tournament 3 levels.
That's right. In fact, let's go ahead and get those packages in place. What I'm going to do is open up the generic browser, and I'm going to open up several packages all at the same time. In my case, I've already researched out the meshes that I'm looking for. I know what packages they're in. If this is the first time you've ever built a level, you probably have no idea which packages include what assets. So take a little bit of time and play around. Open up some packages, see what's in them. Although do not, I repeat, do not open up all the packages at once. I'm sure that your computer doesn't have enough memory to support all of these.
It's going to be very demanding on resources. So let's go ahead and open these up.
All right, and the packages that I'll be looking for are under the ASC series of environment packages as soon as my open window comes in. So we'll go under environments, and under the ASC heading, I'm going to grab Arch 2, we're going to grab Deco, we'll grab Deco Statue, we're going to get Light, we're going to get Supports, and I'm going to grab Light 2 just in case because I think there's a mesh in there that I want. Now that's everybody that I'm going to look for, so we'll go ahead and click Open.
Now, of course, he's opening multiple packages at once, and normally it takes a little bit of time, but wow, that was actually fast.
That was actually really fast.
Faster than I thought it would be.
Alarmingly fast. Now, also, I'm going to narrow down what I want to see in this view, because right now I have materials available. I don't necessarily want to see any materials, so I'm going to check static meshes. And notice the Show All Resource Types checkbox immediately deactivates as soon as I click something in here. I'll switch off materials because I don't need to see those. And I also have textures. We can turn those off as well. And now the generic browser is only showing me the static meshes that are within these highlighted packages.
That's right.
It's very handy for me. Now, where to begin? Sometimes when you are building your own level, you might not know exactly where you want to get started with your static meshes. You know, when all else fails, I start adding my meshes in terms of what do you need to have. Don't worry about decoration at first. Go with practicality. It would be nice if we had some supports running across the ceiling. So I've got a really nice ornate deco beam mesh here. I'm going to select that in the generic browser. Once it's selected, I don't really need the generic browser anymore. We can go ahead and close it. And I'm going to right-click on some surface in my level. It doesn't really matter where. I guess we'll just start on the floor. And go to Add Actor, and there's a lot of different things you could add in here. And a lot of these are just different ways you can bring this mesh into your level. I'm going to choose Add Static Mesh, which is at the very top, so it's the easiest to locate. Click on that, and our mesh magically appears. So let's have a look at it. It's a nice big chunk of wood with what look like a couple of dragons on it. Now,
the material's already applied. It's ready to go.
That's right. Let's get this up to the ceiling. So with it selected, I'll put my mouse on the Z-axis part of the translation widget, and we'll just drag that right up to the roof. Now notice as I do this, I'm snapping in nice 16-unit increments, just as a reminder. That's because my drag grid is currently set to a value of 16. You can also find this in the lower right-hand corner of your interface in the console bar, but because we're recording at such a low resolution, you won't be able to pick it up on our recording. Now, I'm going to jump over to the top viewport, and we'll switch over to brush wire frame mode so that I can get this positioned exactly where I want it. I'm going to begin by putting it right in the corner of the room, and we can see the outline of the room if we select the brush. And we're going to bring it 32 units to the left.
And that's 2 2 of those squares over, since we are looking at each square representing 16 units.
That's right, 16 times 2. All right, now I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and this is going to allow me to duplicate this mesh. So while holding Alt, I'm going to move this mesh in X, and notice it leaves a duplicate behind. That is one of several ways that you have to duplicate something. You could, if you wanted to, hit Control W, which creates a duplicate that is offset from the original, like so. So now I have another one sitting here. And another method of doing that that's non-hotkey is you can go under Edit and choose Duplicate. So just a lot of different ways to do that. Now, I like using the Alt-Drag method just because it doesn't deal with the offset and you automatically leave something behind. So what I'm going to do is hold down Alt, and we'll drag off to the left, and I'm going to move this guy over 96 units. Basically, I'm looking for a 64-unit gap in between these. So we'll hold down Alt one more time, and there we go.
Now let's point something out. Right now, you might not be looking at the bottom when Zach is moving these over. Remember, in the last video we talked about down here on the console bar, we have a representation of how far you are moving something around inside the editor. Make sure to use it. Zach was actually looking down there when he was dragging these over while duplicating and looking for that 96.
Absolutely right. Also, keep in mind that when duplicating multiple objects like I was doing here, you need to let off, you need to release the Alt key in between motions. So, like if I just hold down Alt and I move over, we get a duplication. But if I don't let off the Alt key, the next time I move, we're just moving. You have to release Alt and hold it down a second time to create that next duplicate.
That's right.
Now, I've got a few too many here, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. I'll delete these two as well. So this is going to remain open. There's some pillars that I want to put in here, and if I populate this whole thing with beams, they're going to get kind of in the way. Now, at the same time, if you're building a level on your own, you might not realize that. You might think to yourself, well, let's go ahead and put beams all the way across the ceiling, which is not a bad idea. You can always take them out if you decide they're getting in the way later. Okay, so let's jump back into the perspective view, and we'll switch over to lit mode, and we can see these beams appearing in the right room. Make sure you're looking in the right direction. So there they are. The next thing I want to do is add some pillars into the corners of the room. So we'll go back into our generic browser, and I'll put my attention, as I get a little distracted. We're going to click on the supports package over here in my package list. And at the very top, we have the ASC supports SM Pillar 01. Let's close our generic browser, and I'm just going to right-click here in the corner of the room. We'll choose Add Actor and Static Mesh like so. Okay, so here's our pillar. It's looking pretty good, but there's a problem. It doesn't make it all the way up to the ceiling, so we need to change its size. Fortunately, we can do this with the Draw Scale fields down here in the lower right-hand corner of our interface. There are 4 of these. The first one allows you to scale up uniformly in all 3 of your axes, and then the other 3 fields allow you to scale on one axis at a time, the first one being X, the second being Y, and the third being Z.
Set X to 2, just so they can get an idea. Well, it's not exactly X, but...
It's not A. Sorry, that was Z. It's the one I was on.
Z is a little misleading because it just makes it a lot taller, and you might think, hey, that's what we should use. Let's go and set that one back to 1.
I set it to 0, so it got all flattened.
Now set X to 2, and there you go. That's a good representation of what happens when scaling on just a single axis.
Yeah, you can see it gets wider, but it still stays relatively thin in the Y-axis.
But in this particular case, that is not what we're looking to do. We're looking to uniformly scale this up so that it fits between the floor and the ceiling.
That's right. So we have the X, Y, and Z field here in the very beginning, which is nice because that means we don't have to plug numbers into each one of these fields. So we'll start off by setting this to, say, 1.3. And I might have got a lucky guess there. Yeah, this is ending pretty much at the ceiling. There's a little tiny gap if you get your camera right up on it, but I don't think that's going to be apparent to a player because their viewpoint's going to be way down here. So I think that's actually going to work.
Looks good.
Let's jump into the top view, and I'll switch back over to brush wire frame mode, and we can get this positioned. I'm going to put it right into the corner with just a little bit of a gap from the 2 walls. Now let's make a duplicate of it. Now in this case, check this out. I'm zoomed way in, and I want to make a duplicate that goes over in the opposite corner. But if I do that, I'm going to need to move my camera as I duplicate. Here's a little trick. We're going to hold down Alt so that we're dragging and leaving a duplicate behind. But I'm also going to hold down the Shift key. And by doing this, we're actually holding our new mesh right in the center of the camera, right where it was relative to camera position, and the level slides. So I got a second copy, but as opposed to just moving the mesh, the camera came right along for the ride.
That is a very, very nice, convenient way of duplicating something when you've got a large level that goes outside of your viewport.
That's right. Okay, so we've got our 2 pillars in place. Let's have a quick look at those. We'll jump back into perspective and lit mode, and those are looking pretty good, I think. The next thing I want to do is put a fountain in, and it's a fountain that's going to have a little bit of a framework around it, so we're going to use a couple of different meshes. I'll begin by getting the framework in place. So let's open up a generic browser. I'm going to go into the ASC Deco package, and we have Bell Stick Frame, which is actually supposed to house this little Bell static mesh, but we're going to use it for something else.
So you're going to start with the framework before the fountain?
Before I put in the fountain.
Okay.
Right. So let's right-click. We'll go to Add Actor, and I'll bring in Bell Stick Frame, which is pretty good, but not exactly what I had in mind. You'll notice part of it runs up out of the level, but that's okay. Actually, more is going to run up out of the level by the time I'm done. I'm going to blow this up just a little bit, and we'll do it from the top view, or I'll get it positioned from the top view, at least at first, because I want this cross beam to run right in between my 2 pillars, like so. Now let's go back into perspective, and we'll jump into lit mode, and let's try 1.2. That's pretty good, maybe just a little bit bigger. Let's push that up to maybe 1.25. You'll notice I'm kind of arbitrary with my scales while I'm building, just to see if I find just the right one while I'm working. Let's do 1.3. I think that's going to work, because really the goal that I'm trying to get here is that these pillars will look like they're holding up a framework right up against the ceiling. It is pushing certain parts of the mesh outside the level, but that's not really a problem. Nobody's going to know. It's totally fine here, but it does give us a nice-looking frame. Okay, now if we just get the fountain in the middle, I think we'll be just about done. So let's go back over to the generic browser, and we'll scroll down, and there's our fountain right there. So I'll select it. It's Deco SM Fountain 01. Let's close the generic browser. I'll right-click here in the middle of my frame, choose Add Actor, and bring in the fountain. And you'll notice it kind of crosses over, and it kind of overlaps the framework, which is not really a problem, but we will make this just a little bit smaller. Let's try a value of 0.8. I think that looks pretty good. It's still crossing over a little bit, but it still looks functional.
Yeah.
So it looks like it was kind of built to fit in that way.
That's right.
Okay, so now let's go back into the generic browser. I'm going to bring in a decoration. We've got this fountain dragon who's meant to go along with this mesh. So we'll close out the generic browser with the dragon selected. This time I'll right-click on the fountain itself. Again, we'll choose Add Actor, Static Mesh. And there's our dragon, but he's just a little big.
Just a little.
Coming through the wall. That's actually really cool looking, but not what I had in mind.
Especially the hand part.
So let's go down to maybe 0.7. And now I have to worry about a little bit of positioning. So we'll lift this up into the air. I'll drag it over in X a little bit. I think that's fitting pretty well. You might maybe bring it in just a little more. Let's try maybe 0.65. Also make sure that we're sitting right on that surface. Looks like we're actually cutting into the fountain a little bit. So it'd be nice if I could set it right on top. And you'll notice that I'm running into a little bit of a problem because snapping won't let me find that happy middle ground. Whenever you run into this problem, just come over to your drag grid and set the size down a little bit. So we'll set it down to 8 and see where that gets us. Looks like we still won't quite hit it. So we'll go back in, try a lower setting. And there we go. So now it's sitting, I think that works. Yeah. I mean, it might be crossing over a little bit, but I think in general it looks a lot better than the way it was floating. Okay, so let's set our drag grid back up to its default value of 16. And just as a pointer, don't jump too many spaces when you're setting your drag grid down. I highly recommend, at least when you get started, to go down step by step.
Yeah, a lot of your beginners are going to jump all the way down to a value of 2, or
just turn it off.
Or even turn it off.
Yeah, please don't turn your drag grid off, at least until, not until you know for certain that you absolutely do not need it. And even then, you can probably still use it if you set it all the way down to 1. But now we've got our dragon in place, and that's looking pretty good. And I think overall, I'm liking the way this room is laying out.
Your walls are a little bare. Maybe we can put some sort of decoration on the wall.
I've got just the thing. Let's go back over to the generic browser. We're going to hang a gong on the wall.
Yeah, you can't have a room like this without a gong.
No, you got to have a gong. So we've got a gong and a gong blade. We're going to bring them both in, one mesh at a time. So I'll select the gong blade. I'm just going to move my generic browser out of the way. We'll right-click on this wall, choose Add Actor, Static Mesh, and there we go. Drag this down a little bit because I like the idea of it being right within these wood panels. And I'm going to kind of back away from the wall. I want to get a good idea of spacing. I don't think this necessarily needs to be right in the magical center of the wall.
I wouldn't. I think it looks pretty good right there.
Maybe, I don't know. We might pull it back this way. Because we've got so much going on this side of the room. Might balance it out to drag it slightly to the left.
You could. Of course, now, as you know, you're going to have to adjust your texture, which you can do that and show that to them real quick if you want the center paneling to run right down through that top hole in the blade itself.
Yeah, that is true. When we had the mesh over here, we had that really nice alignment with our texture. But if we move it over here, well, we could line it up to that guy.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, because you could definitely slide it over.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and show them that. But then I'm going to show you what I don't like about that.
Okay, so I'll select our little panel here, and if we want to move the texture, we need to go back into